Afternoon, Mary Catherine. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. So Mary Catherine, we appreciate your time so much. And for those who are watching, I'm here with Mary Cathryn Elkins, who is our program supervisor for outpatient. As well, honestly, you do a lot with this agency. You oversee TOPS, early childhood, and school-based mental health, right?
Yep.
So you've been with Thompson about 3 years, and we wanted to talk about the importance of mental health, really. And we do this a lot in this series, but we did have a few specific questions for Mary Cathryn. Hopefully, you can give us some answers for maybe those who are still new to mental health and the importance. So the first thing, we ask you mental health and why is it important? Why is this important? Why should this be a conversation? Why are we talking about this?
Well, I think mental health drives a lot of who we are as people. So, obviously, we think a lot about our physical health when we think about what food we put in our body and what activities we do. Do we stretch? Do we run? Do we exercise? All of those kinds of things. And I think we need to pay equal, if not more, attention to our mental health because our mental health is what helps us to, rebound from frustration or disappointment. It helps us to stay motivated when we're trying to do something really hard. It helps us to learn how to take deep breaths if we get mad. And it helps us to be able to live in the community as a productive member of the community, someone who's helping others, and making the community kind of live in harmony versus being a person who is creating disruption or is making it harder for people in the community. So our mental health drives a lot of that. I think strong, solid mental health helps us listen and be focused at school. It helps us be good employees. It helps us be good parents and partners. And it helps us to just feel really good in our bodies and, feel good as we go through the day, rather than being kind of constantly attacked by our own mind. So, I think always working on mental health is an ongoing thing that everybody should be doing and really is something that should be done at all times. And it can look different at different times. Sometimes we might need more help than other times, but I think being aware of where your mental health is in any current moment is really helpful so that you can use some of your skills to help yourself feel better.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice introduction, especially from the standpoint of, when I think about it, and I think when most people think about it, looking at our physical health, we can physically see, we can physically touch. With our mental health, we can't, it's very difficult to see your mental health, with the exception, of course, of maybe your thoughts, the things you say, and behaviors, right? So those are like the manifestations of the physical health. But one great point that you mentioned was that it's very important for everyone to focus on mental health. And I think that kind of starts the conversation of, you know, in American society, mental health has been highly stigmatized for decades and for even longer, for centuries. And so we're really trying to shift that conversation to destigmatize something that has had a heavy negative stigma around it. Just the mere fact of talking about it, even if there is no negative, even if there is no deficiency in
Yeah.
that area. So I love that point that you made about everyone can probably improve their mental health. So then the question is, in what means, what methods? And a lot of times therapy comes to mind. And that's of course something that Thompson offers. So maybe you can talk about how mental health can be improved through therapy. I'm sorry.
Sure. Yeah, mental health is a spectrum, just like everything else. And you can, I think if you use the parallel of physical health, somebody can look a certain way and you can look at them and think, wow, they really take care of themselves. Um, Also, sometimes looks can be deceiving. And the same is true of mental health. You can be around someone and think, wow, they really must take really good care of their mental health. Sometimes people might look a hot mess, and then you think, wow, actually, when you talk to them, they're really with it. You know, their mental health is really in alignment. Other times you might see people who seem to have it together, but when you talk to them below the surface, their mental health is not in a good place. So you can't tell from the outside, but you know, it is a spectrum. And so I think one thing that we talk about a lot with clients is that they might enter therapy and really need a lot of support. And that support looks different depending on the age of the kid. And of course, depending on the reason that they're coming to see us. So some of the little kids that we work with in early childhood, it might be some individual time with that client and then also time with their caregiver, because when the child is young, a lot of what we're working on is coaching the caregiver on how to help the child through their tantrums or through their outbursts, or how to learn how to be a good friend and those sorts of things. As we start to work with older clients or even young adults, there's a little bit less of the family and more focus on the individual. But clients, you know, they kind of enter the flow of therapy at different points along the way. And I think it's really important to recognize too that they might get to a point where they're good, they're stable for a while, and they can duck out of therapy, and they can maintain all of their really good gains that they've made with their own skills and by using their support network of caregivers or friends or teachers. Other people are in therapy for longer, so it depends a little bit on if they've had a trauma, or you know, if they have a diagnosis. Let's just say, like, they have a depression diagnosis and they decide they really want to work on it through therapy and meditation. They don't want to take medication, so they may be in therapy a little bit longer. So it varies widely, but I think that what most people gain from therapy is a supportive person in their life who accepts them without judgment and is there to listen and really be their advocate. Sometimes therapists challenge you a little bit because they want you to grow, but they're always going to be acting in your best interest. And I think that's something that everybody needs. We all need someone who's in our corner. So regardless of the reason that brought you to therapy, it just feels good to talk about yourself and what's going on, and to have somebody there who's able to listen without judgment, who's able to help, you know, guide you towards growth in an area that's going to really get you to a point where you can kind of sustain that growth on your own, and you have the skills, you have the support system to be able to manage it on your own.
That is a great answer as well. And you talked about a lot. Couple things that I'd like to like kind of pull out, point out. You mentioned the continuum piece of it. Sorry, the spectrum piece of it. I think of a continuum spectrum. Like
Mhm.
there's the spectrum, and that's very consistent with your responses. So that's I want anybody who's like out there watching to really take note of that, because that's an interesting way of thinking about things. Like you might be good today, you might need a little more help tomorrow, a few years from now you might need, so I really like that. And then one of the things that I wanted to think about, just shifting gears for maybe somebody who's out there watching and never thought about this before, never really knew that they had a need for it, or that everybody has a need for it. um, the first timer,
Mhm.
what do you really get? I mean, people are like, okay, I'm going to spend my time doing this. I'm going to have my, my youth doing this. What are they going to get? You said it right there. They're going to gain a supportive person to talk to. And when you think about maybe some of the people and the youth that Thompson serves, maybe a lot of times they never have had that supportive
Mhm.
person.
Yeah.
Maybe they're in school and they really never had that support. Maybe there are issues in the house. Maybe there are all kinds of things that could be going on. So I would imagine this would be very valuable for maybe especially a first timer, right?
Absolutely. I think people that haven't experienced therapy do get intimidated by it because, you know, it is such a range. It's such a spectrum. And the reason that people get therapy is for many, many different reasons. And so I think a lot of people are intimidated by it, or I think there are a lot of people that think my problem isn't big enough to need therapy. I want support and I want help, but maybe it's not that bad. Um, or there's people who have issues that are kind of overwhelming their lives, but they're afraid to take that first step. So I think the first thing to do is to really assess the quality of your life. Are you feeling, I talk about this with the young children I work with, that happiness is, or our emotions are really on a spectrum. You don't want to feel 0 or 1 or 2. That's like, I really don't want to get out of bed. I don't have energy to do things. You don't want to feel that way all the time. You also don't want to feel like a 9 or a 10 all the time, because that's like bouncing off the walls, super excited, super hyper. That's exhausting also. Really, where you want to be is about a 5. You want to be in that neutral zone where you're kind of going through your day and you feel happy feelings and you enjoy them, and you come back to neutral, and you might feel frustrating feelings and you process them and you come back to neutral. It's the people that are having trouble getting back to neutral that are maybe in a phase where they would benefit from some therapy. So I've been in different stages of my own mental health over the years. And right now I'm at a point where I am able to utilize coping skills and some of the self-care techniques that I've built up over the years to return to neutral pretty quickly. But there have been periods of my life where those skills just haven't worked. And I haven't been able to get myself back to that neutral place by myself. And so I really needed to have the guidance of a therapist. So, I have entered and left therapy several times over the years where I thought, okay, I need it now. Okay, I'm good. I need it now. Okay, I'm good. And I encourage people to do that. So I think kind of looking at your functioning, and are you able to, or is the child that you're taking care of, are they able to get themselves back to neutral without harming themselves, without harming other people, without getting in trouble? And are they able to do it pretty quickly? If they're not able to do that, then they would probably benefit from some therapy. If you as an adult are not able to calm yourself down and get yourself back to neutral pretty quickly with some skills that you have, then you might benefit from some therapy. So what we work on a lot is obviously building that rapport, because we really believe that the relationship is the therapy, the relationship that you have with that consistent supportive adult in your life. That is the therapy. There's lots of interventions the therapists do, but it all comes back to the relationship. So we really believe in strengthening that relationship. But along the way, we're also going to give you just a lot of concrete skills. There's going to be a lot of coping skills that we talk through. We're going to do a lot of, conversations around like, okay, you got in trouble at school today because you hit Johnny, but what was it that made you feel so mad that you needed to hit Johnny? And okay, what can you do next time so that instead of hitting Johnny, you do something else with your anger? We want kids to realize that it's okay to feel feelings. Feelings are what make life beautiful, but we want them to be able to manage those feelings so that they can be, part of that harmonious community versus one of the disruptive members of the community.
Yes.
So
with what you're talking about, with like kind of teaching those coping skills, teaching those ways to be able to get back to neutral.
So I would say that, utilizing coping skills, learning and understanding coping skills is something you would really see across programs. That's really the cornerstone of, that's kind of the, I guess, practical action that, that we take towards building that positive mental health. So teaching kids various coping skills, or teaching adolescents or adults coping skills, is part of the process of kind of recognizing what are the things that set you off, what are the things that take you out of neutral, and what are the things that you can do that's just your go-to list of things that you can do to help yourself come back to neutral. So there's going to be a lot of things that trigger us throughout the day, and we work with a lot of children and adolescents who've experienced trauma. We also work with a lot of children and adolescents who have been in multiple foster care placements, or just haven't had that consistency of learning and understanding the range of emotions and how to manage them. And so a lot of what we do is what we would call psychoeducation, just teaching around, hey, here's the feelings, getting little kids to name, these are the feelings that you might feel throughout the course of the day. And then thinking about what causes those feelings for them and how we can process through those feelings. So that's really all it is. It's about, to really simplify it, we enter that fight or flight mode a lot of times, dozens of times throughout the day. All of us do. And it's triggered by any number of things. So when we perceive that there's a threat, our body goes into overdrive to try to process that threat and to assess the situation and see, is it really a threat? Am I just feeling like it's a threat? Like my dogs, for example, who were just barking because they heard a sound outside and immediately they assume that is a threat and I've got to protect my mom. I've got to protect my house. And so they jump to action. And so people are the same way. We perceive things throughout the day. We're always scanning our environment to see if there are threats. And if there are perceived threats, we get aroused. And some people have a really hard time coming back down. And so typically those are people who've experienced trauma and haven't been given the tools to process through all those little tiny micro traumas that they experience every day when they're triggered by a perceived threat. So what we do across our programs, whether it's intensive in-home or FCT or PRTF or outpatient, is we're constantly getting kids to think about their coping skills and how can I get myself to calm down when I think I've been threatened? How can I calm myself back down so that I can be in that neutral stage? Because the neutral stage is where we're able to really think about, if I do this, then this will happen. Or maybe I shouldn't do that because I don't want to get in trouble. That's where we're able to use that higher level thinking. We can't do that when we feel like we're threatened. So a lot of our work is around helping kids to recognize that fight or flight instinct and how to kind of calm it down.
That's awesome. That's literally perfect, because I'm imagining somebody who's maybe watching this and they like what Thompson stands for. They like the fact that we're committed to destigmatizing mental health. They like the fact that we've got multiple programs. But it's like, oh my goodness, how many programs y'all have, right?
That's a program.
and
Yeah.
and like and what are they all for? And so my way of kind of contextualizing it, making it more palatable, is like, they all address coping skills. They all address, teaching the youth the things that they need to get back to that neutral point. Just like you said it so much better than me also. But also, like, the fact of the matter, like, is there's so many individual needs and there's so many individual situations. So you may have this set of circumstances that creates this situation and these types of behaviors, which then needs this type of program versus maybe a different set of situations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I know that you manage a few programs. As we kind of close, maybe you could tell me a little bit about each, just like sentence or two, and maybe like what would create the right situation for that program.
Yeah. So our outpatient services are kind of your first level of therapy. So anyone who's never had therapy before, they would come through outpatient. And we also get a lot of people who have had therapy before too, and just need to start it again for any number of reasons. Our program is really divided into 3 different sub-programs. One is our early childhood mental health program, and that serves children 8 years and under and their families. And we have that separated out as a specialty because we do work with very young children, sometimes as young as 2 years old. And so the way that we diagnose a child at that age is really different from how you would diagnose older children. And so we have some additional training for those clinicians around diagnosing those really young children. So we utilize play therapy as well as parent-child interaction therapy, and we also have a TFCBT clinician on that team. Then we have what we call TOPS, which is Therapeutic Outpatient Services, and they start working with children around age 9 and go all the way up to adults. So we don't take Medicare, so we work all the way up to age 64, right below the cutoff for Medicare. So we have a range of ages, and those clinicians utilize a couple different specialties. We have a couple of TFCBT trained clinicians, and then we also have some clinicians that are trained in a variety of other types of interventions, and they use a wide variety of interventions, kind of whatever is best suited for the child. Those services for both early childhood and TOPS can happen either in our offices or over telehealth. Usually for early childhood, we try to get people to come in person because it's really hard to do telehealth with a 3 or 4 year old. But And then our school-based mental health services is a similar approach. So it's outpatient. It's just services that are offered in the school setting. So we cover 12 different schools through Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system. Those clients are referred by their school counselor, and then it's approved by CMS. So you can't make an external referral to that program. Those clients come to us through their school. But it's another way to just reduce the barriers to treatment because, getting a child to a session or having the technology to connect to telehealth, sometimes those things are barriers that make it difficult for people to get services. And so Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools has this school-based mental health program in order to allow more children to access services.
That's fantastic. I think that's a great starting point, just to, tip of the iceberg for the programs. And I'm sure if people have, interest or they want to learn more, they could probably reach out to, I'm guessing you, right?
Yeah, they can reach out to
Okay.
me. It's really easy to get services. You can refer yourself. We get questions a lot about, like, does a medical provider have to refer you? And that they do not. So you can refer yourself, you can refer your child. You're welcome to reach out to me, or we also have a request for services on our website that they can fill out, and those get routed to me as well. And I can share. Usually when I get those requests, I'm able to just share our referral form that people can fill out for themselves, and we get you up and running pretty quickly.
Absolutely. And these will be on the website. So it's not very far if you're
That's
interested.
right.
So thank you very much, Mary Kathryn, for taking some time to kind of explain a little bit about, the importance of mental health. Who better to talk to than you? I'm sure we'll be talking very soon. We talk often.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day. Okay.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.